just getting started. This is South Coast Tonight with Chris McCarthy and Marcus Farrow. They've got you covered on all the news of the day, from local issues to politics on both sides of the aisle. This is the place where the movers and shakers come to be heard, to listen, and where they're held accountable. This is South Coast Tonight on WBSM.
Welcome to South Coast Tonight. I'm Marcus. 508-996-0500 is how you can get on the program. Let's go to the phones. Good evening.
Good evening, Marcus. Happy New Year.
Hey, good evening, Shani. Happy New Year to you as well.
Can you hear me? Because you're like soft.
Oh, sorry. Raise the volume. Can you hear me?
Yeah, a little. I think it's my phone.
I think so.
You can hear me, though, right?
I can hear you well.
Okay, so my opinion is I don't know why she did that. That's ridiculous.
Yeah,
and I hope it can be reversed. That's
by she, you mean Council Morad proposing the $50,000 pay hikes?
Right.
Yeah, I don't either.
And
I don't know why this. I mean, she proposed it, she championed it, but the City Council voted to adopt it too, and it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, but what about the City Council? We need change everywhere around here. Sometimes they stay in there too long too. Who votes them in where they're at?
Well, I mean, they're up for the city elections are every 2 years, every odd year. So, that's where if people are really that if people are upset, they can. I mean, if you might be in a situation where you like the counselor and you just want to say, hey, listen, that was really bad. I don't want you to do, this is bad. You owe me an explanation. Don't do that again. You could do that, or you could say, for one of those counselors or more than one, you'd be like, listen, you got to go. You can vote somebody else in. That's I guess those are the paths you can take. I like most of the city councilors. I think they're good people, but I think trying to propose a $50,000 pay hike and shoving it into a necessary package to use that as leverage as a necessary pay raises, I think is not good, especially when they're cutting other really necessary. They're making cuts to other really necessary services, and then they're like, "Oh, here's $50,000. Here's $40,000 here. Here's $50,000 here." It doesn't make any sense.
So wasn't Linda Morad on it before when she came back? She left and then came back.
Well, yeah. What, the council? My understanding is that she was on it until she lost she ran for mayor and came in third to Mitchell and Cabral, and then ran again the next cycle and got back on. I think ran for at large in the next cycle and got back on. So
now she's going to go for president again.
Well, she'll probably be the council president. Yeah.
They vote on that, though, right?
They vote on that Tuesday. Yeah. And
anyways, and the streets, and Mayor Mitchell keeps talking about he's going to fix the streets. Now, I was in a van-type vehicle today, and the street, Cottage Street, is so bad, even the fella driving said this street is got to be fixed. I mean, even if they fix half of it. And the explanation I got was, it's going to be fixed. It's on the list, but it's something to do with Eversource that was doing work. So what's taking so long? I mean, it's taken years for them to do Cottage Street.
Yeah. I don't know.
And they also said that they do it in the wealthy areas before they do the streets that really need it.
Yeah. I don't know.
That's not right.
It's not right. I agree. It's not right. Did you try asking the mayor when he's on with Tim? I would ask him.
I'm going to have to call in on Wednesdays, but I'm beginning to get the yeah, that's what I'm getting.
Yeah.
With no action, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I understand. That's really frustrating.
I'm noticing that more and more. All right. Well, I hope that gets reversed because now I'm going to have a hard time sleeping.
Yeah, I mean, at least I think people, if it doesn't, whether or not it can get reversed, I'm not sure, but at least people can, do something to make sure people don't do that stuff again. It was careless. It was completely and totally reckless and unacceptable behavior for an elected official. It's hard to chalk it up to anything else than that.
Well, they all gave themselves a raise one time too. I remember that.
You know what? That was more justified, I think, because I think they do a lot of work, and if you're doing the job right, it's a lot of work. So they gave themselves a 40% pay raise. The vote on that was, I believe, 10-1. John Saunders is the one that proposed it, and then he was the one that got punished for it. He said, if you don't like it, vote me out. And he got punished for it, and he did get voted out. But I thought actually I think that was actually correct. I think this is a lot worse than that. I think this is a lot worse than that pay raise for themselves vote, because it's just like, first, it's like throwing $50,000 at like three positions and then saying, oh, well, the department heads. I think there was a real reason to raise New Bedford City Council's pay. I think they weren't getting paid enough for the work that they do, because if you're doing the job right, it is a time consuming job. But this is just like, well, it's totally arbitrary, right? It doesn't make any sense, and it seems like it's very careless.
We need you over there, Marcus. Yeah. But I noticed that you're really getting into this job. I'm glad you like it.
Thank you.
The talk show.
I appreciate it. I do really enjoy the job. I thank you. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Okay, you take care.
You as well.
And have a happy New Year.
You as well, thank you. 508-996-0500. Good evening.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi, it's the first time I kind of heard you, Marcus. It's Marcus, right?
Yep.
Oh, good. It's nice to hear you.
Thank you.
I have a little discrepancy with that woman that just spoke. I don't think they may have not worked on Cottage Street, but I've been through this city. I walked from the north end all the way down to the south end, and I've seen all the work they've been doing all summer long. My street on Sycamore used to be huge potholes. It's all brand new paved. Everything's done. I know Eversource is doing their thing because they've been doing it down on Beetle Street, Clifford Street, down on Sawyer. They've been down on Ashley Boulevard, downtown. It's all new, brand new roads, new sidewalks, and new brickwork, too, including the new lighting that they've been putting in. So I don't understand how she could be saying that nothing's getting done in the city. I think this is the first year that we actually had a lot of stuff getting going and done.
That's great. That's good. That's really good. I mean, it might just be she's over on Cottage Street, and that's where, all politics is local, and in that case, it's hyper local, right? That's like
they plan on getting down that area because I know that nursing home is right up the street because my brother works there, and they're doing work. I mean, it's not like they're just standing around twiddling their thumbs. Things are getting done for a change.
I agree. And listen, my, as like I said, in my position, we only have, based on budgetary concerns and all of that, we can only pick a certain number of streets per year to like repave, right? And so there are people, there's like a wait, there's a backlog, there's a wait list, and we have to pick those streets. We go by the recommendations of the superintendent. These are the 5 streets that we need, right? We need to get done, and we keep doing that. So it just little by little we're improving street by street, but it's just based on the budgetary constraints that you have to do those streets.
Yeah, but you think about this from years ago. I mean, nothing was really getting done. But now, all of a sudden, within the last couple of years, I noticed a lot of stuff is getting done.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of glad because it's about time. Streets are getting paved, sidewalks getting put in, new lighting, new whatever. In my personal opinion, everybody's different, but I think the mayor did a good job in getting this thing going here.
Yeah,
I'm sure they're going to get to Cottage Street.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, I said, I said to the caller, I hope she calls into Mayor Mitchell's segment on Wednesday with Tim, and then can voice that concern to him, and he might be able to say exactly where it's at. He might have that knowledge off the top of his head. Say, oh, okay, well, Cottage Street's on our list for this year or next year or whatever. Because I know how it works here. You only have a certain amount of streets to do. I understand that.
Yeah, exactly. Because I noticed too they've been doing a lot of work down on Station 1 down here. The fire department too. They've been doing a lot of remodeling in that area, which is good to see.
Yeah, that is good.
I mean, we need stuff, and I'm glad to see the police are out and things are getting done. But I've been here since I was, God knows, I was just a teenager when I moved here to New Bedford, and I've watched this city grow. And I think that what's going on right now is a good thing.
That's good. That's great.
So I'm hoping somebody agrees with that. I'm seeing it. I know it.
I think your sunny disposition is refreshing.
Well, sometimes you need a positive, and somebody may neglect to it and bring a negative in there. But we don't argue about it. We kind of talk it through and see what can be accomplished here.
Well, like I said, she's been talking about that issue on Cottage Street. It's something that's important. I think there's probably other streets in the city that aren't getting that probably haven't been serviced yet either, and there could be certain reasons for that.
Because you got Sharma Ave, with Campbell Street, those areas right there. Some of those roads are pretty bad too.
Right.
Now I know because I have family living down in that area.
Right. So
I'm able to say something about it.
Yeah, so there's probably a lot of people around that live in different areas that may not be getting as much service for one reason or another, and I think they're rightfully justified in being frustrated.
Well, if you notice too, it's like 1 week, Eversource, the cable company, the phone, they rip up the roads. They're putting in new stuff in there, new gas pipes, water lines, sewer. And hope to God they don't turn around and rip it apart again right after they fix the thing.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that bugs me.
Right.
Because they did that here.
Well,
they paved a beautiful road, and not even 4 months later, they turned around, ripped it back up, and then paved it again.
Right. Yeah, it's a difficult job. I know the people at DPI are doing the best they can to provide that, to have the best, the best roads, the safest and most navigable roads that they can possibly provide. A lot of that is on the votes for, the budget and all of that. Maybe they need a better allocation.
Yeah, I'm an avid voter. I vote every year. Every time there's an election, I'm there.
Well, you've generated some call traffic, so I'm gonna have to let you go and get to these calls. But I do appreciate you calling in.
Okay.
Thank you.
Nice talking to you.
Likewise. 508-996-0500. Good evening.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm a first-time caller. I've never called before, but I have to agree with the gentleman about giving these people $50,000 raise. I worked in a company for 41 years and in Boston, and the most we've ever got is a 3% raise and 2%. And plus I'm a senior now, and the taxes in the city of New Bedford are astronomical.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. And you like that was those raises that were proposed were 40 to 50%, right? It's crazy.
I never get on the job, and I worked at the same company for 41 years, and I also work part-time in the New Bedford area.
Yeah.
And I've never, ever got a raise more than 2 or 3%. I've never got, so I don't know what justifies them to get a $50,000 pay raise. And I don't know what Linda Morad, well, she doesn't care, Linda Morad, anyway, because she owns all kind of property in New Bedford, and she's getting all kind of income, so she doesn't care about the regular taxpayers who are trying to make ends meet. and especially when you get these high tax increases on your property. Every single year, I can set my clock by them. They keep jacking the taxes up every year.
Yeah, it certainly didn't. It certainly seemed like a careless proposal and a careless vote for sure. Absolutely.
Well, I can tell you one thing. When the election comes up, and that's why it leaves a very bitter taste in the taxpayer's mouth when you get these, especially somebody like Linda Morad agreeing to have these people getting a $50,000 raise.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good evening. Thank you.
I appreciate the call. Thank you. No, I agree. I do. I agree. I love first-time callers too. That's awesome. Thank you for calling in. Welcome to the show. Yeah, I agree. I think it was pretty wanton, like recklessness, to make those votes, and it's like either it was like a momentary, really bad lapse in judgment, or you just, just doesn't care, or they don't care. It's that's what you can chalk it up to. Good evening.
Yeah, how you doing?
Good.
The last two callers are right. They are doing some work on the roads, not like he's making it out, but they are actually doing some work on the roads. And the guy that was talking about the taxes, yeah, he's totally right on that. And then they're giving him, 15,000 people in city council, $15,000?
50.
$50,000 raise.
$50,000 raise for three employees. It was part of a necessary package to give. It's part of a necessary package to give every Unit C employee a pay raise. But Jack Spillane points out, most of those pay raises, which were necessary, were 2 or 3 levels, and then the 3 that Linda Moore had proposed were 6 levels above that, above what those 3 employees were making, and it was again $40,000 to $50,000, about 50% higher than they were before. And while they in their positions deserved a pay raise, now those positions are now being paid at a rate that's 51% higher than anybody else in the entire state. It doesn't make any sense.
I think I'm running for city council. I want to make a lot of money.
Well, just to be clear, they didn't make those pay raises for themselves, but I think a lot of people they didn't make those pay raises for themselves, but it was still I think a reckless allocation of public funds for sure.
Yes, it was. And I'm only joking. I ain't running for city council. But
you could.
If I could, I would try to help the city out and the people in the city a great deal, and not telling the story like a lot of them do.
Right.
But that's a politician for you. They lie. They tell you everything you want to hear, and then they screw you over.
Some do, some don't. Some are better than others. But
yeah, I think the most honest politician. Some people are going to laugh at this, but I think Bernie Sanders... Oh, no,
he's 100%. I think I'm a huge Bernie guy, but I remember during the Republican debate in 2016, I think a lot of people even said, even the Republicans were like, oh, well, I don't, he's honest. Everybody says that. You can't doubt his sincerity, even if you don't agree with his politics. And I do agree with his politics a great deal, but you can't doubt that he hasn't been firmly entrenched where he's at for 50 years. There's records of him talking about the issues that he's talking about now for 50 years. So he is consistent for sure.
Yeah, considering he's got money, he cares about, well, you know why? Because he grew up poor.
Yeah, he grew up in Brooklyn, yeah.
Yeah, but he, he's got money, but he...
Of course, he's a U.S. Senator.
The middle class and poor. He knows what it's like.
Yeah, he does. And he's dedicated his whole life, actually, to
hey, one more question for you, and then I'm going to let you go.
Okay.
How do people like Marjorie Taylor Greene get in office? That's crazy.
Gerrymandering, maybe? Yeah, she's got a favorable district. It's crazy. And she'll be...
Cruz, another one. Ed Cruz, his own kid, don't even like him. They did an interview with his daughter, and she said, I don't like how my father acts.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. He's an objectively awful guy. Remember when he left the state while they were undergoing a historic winter storm? He just went to Cabo. He's awful. Yeah. He's an awful, awful guy. Beto O'Rourke came close. It was like 51 to 48% of the vote. I think it's more testament to how odious Ted Cruz is, that even in a state as ruby red as Texas, he even barely squeaked by.
Well, you have a good night. I've had enough of talking about the politicians now. But
Okay.
A lot of them are just pathological liars, like Donald J. Trump, who's really not a politician.
Yeah.
Joe Biden, they'll stick up for him. He's old.
Yeah, I don't think Joe Biden was ever a good guy, even when he was young. But
better than Trump.
Sure.
Or do you disagree?
I mean, it's just hard. Like, who's more awful? Like, they're both awful. I would say Joe Biden's less awful than Trump, though. Sure.
Yeah, but I think they need to both go away.
I agree.
You have a good night.
You as well. Thank you. All right, 508-996-0500. Love that we got first-time callers in this evening. It's great. So keep them coming. Give us a call, 508-996-0500. Send us a message on the WBSM app chat.
Listen to us live.
Hey. Welcome back to the program. I'm Marcus Farrow, 508-996-0500. I am but a conduit for the callers and the app chatters who in the audience who wants to continue a conversation. The conversation that you guys have clearly wanted to continue is the one on the city council vote to raise four positions three positions about $50,000 each that was brought forward by Councilor Morad. It was adopted by the City Council. It was part of a package of necessary pay raises. That were significantly less than $40,000 and $50,000 for certain positions, and people are rightfully outraged by it. It's when you elect somebody to a public position, when you entrust them with your tax dollars, when you entrust them with the government that's supposed to provide the essential services that you expect from them, from your local government, from where those tax dollars, what those tax dollars are supposed to pay for, you expect them to act prudently. You expect them to act prudently and in consideration of your best interest. And those votes. You cannot say that those votes in any way possible reflected those values that you'd expect from a local government official or any really government elected official. Now, I've said before, and I'll say it again, I like most of the city councilors. I think they're good people. But this behavior, this type of sort of laissez-faire and wanton recklessness in this vote, it is unacceptable. And maybe when Councilor Morad proposed that pay raise package, that maybe the other councilors didn't want to upset the apple cart, and they knew how necessary these pay raise votes were, and they wanted to get forward so it didn't jeopardize the whole package. Maybe that was it. Maybe that's why they took Councilor Morad's recommendations to pay these three employees $50,000 more dollars. The mayor can't do anything about it because the package, it's kind of what makes this vote so odious, because you're taking these necessary pay raises for employees that are underpaid, and you're using it as leverage to throw $50,000 apiece at these other positions, right? Because you know that the mayor doesn't have a line item veto, and you figure the city council doesn't want to upset the apple cart, right? And so you just throw $150,000 or more in salary at a position that's well outside of what's been recommended to keep that position competitive, and with no really good faith justification. And so people are obviously concerned. You've heard calls here talk about, is it patronage, right? Patronage meaning, like, is it, are you doing this because you like your friend, or you want to see them get more money, or are you doing this for any reason? And it seems like there hasn't been a legitimate, like, fact-based or data-driven reason for those pay raises. And so it just brings into question, the discretion of somebody that would propose that. It's crazy. The whole thing's crazy. It's unjustifiable, and I don't think people should stand for it. One of the things you can do is make your voice heard on it. And again, this is, I know people that listen are reliable voters, and they know that people are calling that are calling them are reliable voters. So you should reach out to your public officials. You should make your voice heard here on WBSM, because I think your complaints are valid. I think your concerns are completely and totally valid, and I think you should voice them going forward. It's something we'll continue on as this new year goes forward, as a new session of the council goes forward. We'll be tracking it. And I'm tracking it now, and I'm taking your calls at 508-996-0500. That's how you can get on the program this evening. If you want to call on that, you can. I was doing a segment, like I said, I'm a conduit for whatever you guys want to talk about, right? And if you want to keep talking about it, you can give me a call. I was doing a segment at the beginning of the show, and I was just kind of going over the 5 most important stories I thought were locally of the year. I'm just going to do that now. We're at the end of the show, and if you want to call in and talk about the pay raises some more, you absolutely can. We can talk about that. It's something that we'll keep talking about going into the new year as well, and we'll definitely get we'll hopefully get some counselors to talk about it on the record. I know Councilor Abreu had some concerns that he had voiced on it, and I know that there's some on the record statements on it from the. I know there's some on the record statements on it from. I know there's some on the record statements on it from the Councilor Morad and the councilors in the meeting, but I think maybe some further explanation is warranted. So 508-996-0500 is how you can get on the program this evening, or we can take your messages on the WBSM app chat. Just trying to figure out why the second hour of the podcast isn't up, but hopefully it'll be up soon. And, so I was doing a segment. I was doing what I thought the 5 most important stories were. Number 5 was the Noah's Playground story. And I think, again, there's a lot of parallels to what happened there and what's happening here, in that, it's something that happened, an action by a local government that most people rightfully found to be outrageous. And with collective action, they did something to ensure that outrageous action would not continue, or would, wouldn't happen or would not continue, right? And that was, everybody collectively got behind the effort to, repeal that pay to park system at Noah's Playground, the ADA accessible playground for individuals with disabilities, and it worked, right? And so I think you've got a similar opportunity here to really make your voice heard on this. And a lot of that was driven here at WBSM by this, not by this show, but, my Saturday show, Tim's show, Kate Robinson in the news, Phil, Barry, the weekend programming. So that's something that's something that really should continue. So 508-996-0500. The number 4 story I had, I think, was the migrants to Martha's Vineyard story. That's not necessarily a South Coast story, right? But it is. I think it was enough in the southeastern Mass, in our orbit to really be a local story. I mean, there's a ferry to Martha's Vineyard right off this shoreline here. There's a ferry that's about, what is it, an hour to Martha's, 45 minutes to the vineyard. There was a lot of talk about whether or not New Bedford would accept some of the migrants, some of the 50 migrants that were flown here. There was a lot of national attention on this story. Obviously, we talked about it a lot here. There's a lot of coverage here. I had Julian Sear on, who's a state senator from Truro, who represents the Cape and Islands in the State House, and he really built a national profile on that topic. So I think that was the number 4 story of the year. Number I think that was number 4 story of the year. My number 4 story of the year was the top 5 story of the year for me because, again, it was a pretty local issue that had started a broad national talk. And I think, one of the things that I think propelled, Ron DeSantis to, his, I guess, stardom in the Republican Party, as, horrifying and as awful as what he did was. I would say that was, the Martha's Vineyard migrant story is, for me, a top 5 local story. The number 3 story is Joe Biden visiting the South Coast, going to Somerset, going to Brayton Point, and he did that to talk about the offshore wind industry. He did that to make a seminal speech in his climate agenda. He talked about basically, his. He talked about the Brayton Point, how it was a former coal fire plant, one of the most environmentally hazardous coal fire plants in New England, and now it's being converted into a major manufacturing campus for the offshore wind industry. I remember we talked to on South Coast Tonight, the very early days of South Coast Tonight in the summer. We spoke with Congressman Jake Auchincloss, so that was in his district. We spoke to him on air later that evening. He flew back to D.C. and he gave Chris and me a call to talk about that. His experience riding on Air Force One, the reason Biden chose Brayton Point in Somerset, the reason why, it was such, the reason why he chose there to deliver that speech, and why, Massachusetts is going to be a leader in that offshore wind industry and a leader in clean power in general. So that was my number 3 story. It feels like it should be, the president coming down here should be a little higher, but I feel like there was like I've always said on this program, all politics is local, and there's stuff that's so much more locally impactful, I think, in the local, impactful things that are so much more impactful in the local scene, that I think these next 2 stories, I don't know, rank a little bit higher for me, just because, again, all politics is local. What happens here, what happens at the hyper-local level really matters a lot more. And number 2 for me is and it is a local thing because it impacts us, is the statewide races. You had a historic statewide a slate of statewide races for Massachusetts. You had for the first time in American history, an all-woman, the first time, I think in American history, an all-woman ticket was elected to the governor's office with Healy and Driscoll. The first time Massachusetts elected a woman governor. Obviously, Jane Swift served as an acting governor after Paul Cellucci had taken an ambassadorship. But you had Diana DiZoglio, Kim Driscoll, Andrea Campbell, Maura Healey, right? And they all joined us, right? They all joined us. And we spoke with Andrea Campbell multiple times. I got to speak with Maura Healey when she came down to the South Coast. I got to Diana DiZoglio joined us, remember, for an hour in studio after the feast. A lot of them spent a lot of time down here. I think DiZoglio in particular spent a ton of time down here. But, Kim Driscoll came down for rallies. Maura Healey came down to the South Coast to talk about to help prop up some local candidates as well for office, like Carol Doherty up in Taunton. You had some really competitive primaries, and everybody came here to South Coast Tonight and came down to the South Coast to reach out to this community because they valued this community. At the feast, it was incredible because there was it's rare that you get 4 open constitutional offices, and so many, almost all of those candidates came down to the feast. And the ones that didn't win, by the way. The candidates that didn't come down to the feast definitely didn't win, by the way. But it was really there was a lot of action, and I think a lot of stuff that's going to impact us. I think after talking to each of these candidates that's been elected into office, I think they're going to be a strong partner for this region. They all have specific plans for the region. They all seem to be pretty invested. They come down here quite a bit. And, I actually remember talking to Diana DiZoglio off the air but she won't mind me saying this. She was talking about how much time she spent down here in the South Coast in Taunton, New Bedford, Fall River, and all that. And she said it feels like home because she's from Methuen, right? And the gateway cities up over in the Merrimack Valley. And she says, it's a similar people, similar issues that they're dealing with, similar demographics. That I like being down here because it feels like home. And I thought that was really cool. So I think you can expect a lot from those from those candidates. And that's my number 2 story. My number 1 story, of course, the Bristol County Sheriff's race. And, what more is there to say about it? It was the most electric race in the entire state. It was happening here. It was happening here, and we got to decide the outcome on that race. And it was really it was a nail biter. It was incredible. It was intense every moment of it. There was news developing every day. They were here in studio. Tom Hodgson and Paul Heroux were here in studio for one of 2 debates. The other one, WPRI with Ted Nesi and Tim White. And they were here in studio, and you could feel the intensity in here, right? And then we've gotten to cover their transition and how incredibly gracious they've been afterwards. And a lot of people are interested in that story about Heroux's comments on Ash Street Jail, which was very revealing. So this, even though the election's over, this story continues to be probably the most interesting political story that's happening right now. It still continues to be that way. So obviously the Bristol County Sheriff's race, that's number 1 for me. That's an easy number 1, and I think it was number 1 for a lot of people, especially if you're listening to South Coast Tonight. All right, 508-996-0500 is in the program. I'm going to take a break.
1420 WBSM is now also on 99.5 FM.
It just wouldn't be.
WBSM isn't just a broadcast. It's also a podcast. Get all of our podcasts at WBSM.com, the WBSM app, or just search WBSM on your favorite podcast provider.
Hey, welcome back. So just went over my top 5 stories of 2022. Again, just quickly going back, the Noah's Playground story, the Peta Park story at Noah's Playground, the migrants, this is local stories, the migrants getting traffic to Martha's Vineyard by Ron DeSantis. That's number 4. Number 3 is Joe Biden visiting the South Coast. Number 2 is the statewide elections here. And number 1, of course, is the Bristol County Sheriff's race. Those are my top 5 stories of 2022. Looking ahead, and we've been talking about this pay raise issue. This might end up being I think this might have had to put this in the top 5 because a lot of people are really interested in, even though it just happened, a lot of people are really, really interested in this story in which the city council voted to raise pay about $50,000. It was proposed by Councilor Moore at $50,000 for 3 specific positions in city government. It didn't make a lot of sense. Still doesn't make a lot of sense. And we'll take your calls and app chat messages if you want on that for the rest of the show at 508-996-0500. Looking ahead, the things that I'm looking forward to next year, and obviously there's going to be town elections here in Fairhaven. There's a couple of select board seats that are up for election. Town elections in Dartmouth, which I think will be really interesting after the Defend Dartmouth stuff that went on last year with the Indian logo and mascot voted overwhelmingly to be kept at Dartmouth High School, but I don't know if there's going to be any electoral consequences for people who may have supported or opposed that in the last election. So there's something we'll get to track in those local elections. Obviously, New Bedford City election, this might be an issue here, the pay raises thing, but we're going to be looking at whether or not Mayor Mitchell's going to decide to run again. I think he is. I'm leaning towards yes. I will continue to ask him. He will continue to ignore my question, which I don't blame him, but I will continue to ask him when he joins me. He will continue to ignore the question, but I think he is. I think there's a lot of development coming here. He's done the job. I think he likes the job. There's a lot of stuff coming here, and I think if he runs, he's basically unbeatable, unless someone comes out of left field that I don't know about. It seems like he's probably going to run. My prediction would have been that if he doesn't run, we're looking ahead. If he doesn't run, I said this on Barry's show, that Tony Cabral, the state rep, Tony Cabral would run for Mitchell's, the open seat, would run for mayor, and then Ian Abreu would run for state rep, because Ian's been very open about running for higher office. There could be other people that jump into that race too. There's other city councilors that live in Tony's district. that could jump into. But I think everybody's looking at Ian Abreu to run for higher office. I think he'd run for that rep seat. I got some pushback on that today, so maybe I'm mistaken. That's kind of where my head's at. I mean, if Tony doesn't run, I think you'd probably see Ian run for mayor. Maybe other people in the council. There are people in the council that have run for mayor, and everybody on the city council's got to be considered a candidate or a contender because they've already been voted on by people in the city. So, looking ahead at that, I do think you'll see Mitchell run again in 2023. I think you'll see him run for another term. But if not, then there'll be a domino effect, of course, and we'll see how that pans out. So, 508-996-0500 is how you get in the program. We're obviously going to see in the national stage people jumping in for president and all that. We're looking forward to the incoming Healy-Driscoll administration, right? And what they plan on doing. I think, and of course, locally the new Hero administration in the sheriff's office. That was again the hottest race of the year, and he's going to have a lot of eyes on him now after running the campaign he ran and winning in the way he did. He's going to be under the microscope, and we're going to see what changes are made, what changes are made, what changes aren't made, and how that moves the conversation going forward on, like local law enforcement policy and local corrections policy. We'll be covering that here from end to end. I mean, I've really enjoyed covering the sheriff's race and even the transition afterwards. I think it's a fascinating story, and I think it keeps even as the election is over, I think it keeps getting better. With that story I have on WBSM.com about Hero's, surprise at being at the conditions of the famous Ash Street jail, and he said, it wasn't dirty. He thinks it's fit for inmate habitation. He's not committing to closing it. He never did commit to close it, to be fair. But people that supported him do want it closed. So we'll see how that all shakes out going into the election year. All right, I've got to take a break. I will be right back. This is South Coast Tonight. So the show in the final minutes of the year for South Coast Tonight. So for people who may not have heard, tomorrow, first of all, you can tune in to Brian Thomas, 7 to 9, Ken Pittman, 9 to noon, Jose Matos, 12 to 1, Jess Machado, 1 to 4. You can tune into Town Square Sunday with Jim Phillips on Sunday at 6 a.m. and 11 a.m. I usually catch the 11 a.m. show while I'm driving, doing my Sunday errands before football, the big game. I'm in my fantasy football championship for anybody that cares. I hope you wish me luck. But Monday we are off. Monday is the observance of New Year's Eve. We will not be in the building, so there won't be any South Coast Night, nor will there be any regular program at WBSM. You can enjoy some of our syndicated stuff. Tuesday we'll be back. Tuesday through Friday we're doing our regular thing, so I'll be here. And are looking forward to continuing this conversation and other conversations going forward. And you can always give us a call at 508-996-0500. Message us on the app chat whenever you'd like to get the conversation going as well. I got to say, it's been a pretty good year for me personally. Getting this show, getting this show, hearing the responses to it, hearing you guys, getting all these candidates in, getting these guests on. That has been the absolute highlight of the year, and I'm very, very grateful for it. And it's because of you guys, so I'm grateful for you all tuning in, calling in, messaging, and just listening because you're making this program happen and allowing me to do something that's really been a dream of mine, which is talk about these issues with people with a broad audience. So I really appreciate that. Have a good new year. I don't have to tell you to be safe, right? Be safe and that's it. Have a good new year. Be safe, and I'll see you in 2023 on Tuesday, January 3rd. We'll have a lot to talk about, and look forward to talking about it with you. So, see you later.